Hey, Amir, we see you back there.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Conversations with My Cuz. I am Shayla Shay.
And it is me, your girl, Michelle, with the one L.
And I'm Brother Love DJ Big Ra.
Woo!
In the building, in the building.
All right. Hey, what's
What's
going on, guys? It's been 7 whole days.
okay? Oh, shoot, you can sing.
It's yours, though. It's yours.
So
So
what's
what's going
popping,
on,
y'all? What's
Rod?
good?
What you chewing on? You hungry?
I'm
Oh
sorry.
my
What's up, ladies?
goodness.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I had a busy weekend. 2 parties last night. Had a great time. Shout out to Johnny Bowtie. My man DJ Zai was there. DJ Storm over at that old bar. First party was a 90s party. We just had a great time. Shout out to Coffee for helping me, get that booking and dealing with, the client. So it's busy. I
Nice.
just got here.
Nice, nice,
Not to
nice.
mention all the tequila I drink. But how was y'all weekend though?
Well, it wasn't filled with tequila, I could tell you that.
At all.
But you go
At
right
all.
ahead, okay?
At all.
That is
No
it. But I
tequila
would
for
like to
me. I'll be
toast.
drinking water. Water.
I want to take a toast. I want to say that this is I don't know if I did this last week, but I'm excited about this weather and this summertime and just showing up,
Finally.
right? It
Finally.
feels
Whoa.
like it's really happening.
Yeah, shout out to the weather. I went to had a nice brunch
Shout
today
out to
with
the
a friend
weather,
of
like it's a
mine.
person.
Shout out to the weather. The weather was beautiful. I had a chance to stop and see the game. Little upset, my feelings hurts. The Bucks lost, but hey, Giannis will get him again next year. But had a couple drinks, got back here in time, and we here.
All right.
Well, shout out to we're gonna toast to the weather. Good weather.
That's it.
Spring
Shout out
finally
to the
showed
weather,
up.
baby. Damn, we
Spring
here.
finally showed up.
So besides your DJing all weekend, what else has been going on? What's trending?
Oh man, listen to this. Sad news, lady. Sad news. I guess a man drove 200 miles to find a Pacific hood in
Mm,
Buffalo. It was an African American community. He shot and killed 10 people. I believe 3 people survived. But the crazy part about this story I was reading was he had a camera on his helmet, and he
right.
streamed live to Twitch, and he
Yeah.
started in the parking lot. So he shot 3 people in the parking lot. 3 of them were killed. Then he turned around and shot one more person, walked into the store and shot another 9 people. So a total of 10 died, and the other 3 they had lived, and out here they're fighting for their lives as well.
You know,
18-year-old child.
18-year-old child who had
18.
a vendetta. This is what he planned to do, and it was to target our community. And he drove 200 miles to do it. And what I also saw, I did see a video today that he actually went to shoot a white guy and realized he was a white guy and apologized to him and didn't shoot him
And shot somebody else.
and shot someone
Just
else.
black
That was
people.
just black
Just
people.
black
So
people.
Yeah, and
I
you know
mean,
what's
our
crazy?
prayers go out to the families, though, everybody affected, because I mean, it affects us as a community. So we're all affected by something like this, and it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
really
and what's sad about this is I just read that at the arraignment, he had the nerve to plead not guilty.
by
How?
What?
reason of what?
On a video cam. You're on a video cam on Twitch, tweeting, streaming out to the world that all of a sudden you're pleading not guilty. This is
Mm,
crazy. And another thing I want to point out too, I don't want to sound negative, but I don't understand how people like George Floyd could be killed by the police and didn't do nothing to nobody. And this guy didn't get killed. He didn't get shot.
No,
No,
they told him to put the
I
gun
mean,
down
that's
and
crazy.
he complied. because
No, he
we're
had the
not
gun
the
to his
enemy.
head. He had the
No,
gun
he had the
to
gun to
They
his
talked him.
head.
They
his
talked
neck.
him
It was
down.
his
He
neck.
put the gun down. So
Yo,
they didn't.
like I
Somehow
said,
you make
it's
it
So
it's
through.
now we don't want to see anybody die. We don't want to see anybody get killed, but we know that situation would have been completely different if it was the black person that was doing the shooting. He would have never made it. He would have
right.
been
They
shot
found
on
a way.
sight. It would have been no having a conversation, nothing. It would have been done. He would have been dead. And that's what we would have been talking about today. How the gunman was killed as well.
Right.
It's crazy. I mean, I'm trying to figure out really what is this world coming to? Is Trump going to get reelected?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Then there was another
And
shooting
that,
today I heard in Houston or something at a flea market. I don't even know the logistics on that one. I just heard that. I just was reading that before we even went on. So
it's
it's just a
just
lot going on.
a lot of it is like where where are we failing when it gets to a situation where a young person at 18 has so much malice in their heart towards a community of people to the point where you travel away from where you live to with the intent to just kill as many people as you possibly can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
That's
sure
crazy.
it's crazy because he hated us basically.
Mhm.
And then you say he had nigger on his gun or something like that, Rashi. I didn't read that.
He did have they believe that and I guess they still have to confirm it that the gun had nigger written on it and the number 14. And 14 is a number that is associated with white supremacy.
Wow.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. It's sickening and it's saddening. It's sad. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know.
I want to pray for the families. I mean, we as a community have a lot of healing to do, right? Just fixing the
Yeah.
minds of people. And that's really what it is. So,
Healing,
um,
the healing is ongoing. It just never stops because we're always
right.
healing from something because there's some trauma that's affecting us
Absolutely.
always, and it's just awful. And again, my prayers go out to those affected, to the families and involved, and just hope that things get better.
Right.
Yeah,
I,
that's terrible. I mean, honestly, that's just crazy.
I wanted to take a moment to shout out the chat because we didn't say hi to the chat. I know we have some people in here. I'm sure, there are quite a few people that have, strong opinions and feelings about this entire thing. So, shout out to the
Absolutely.
chat. I also want to shout out to our streaming sources of Twitch. Unfortunately, the platform that this young man did
Yeah.
use, right? Spotify, we are on YouTube, IG, Facebook, iHeartRadio, Blue Rain Radio. So, shout out to all of our listeners and viewers out there as well.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Shout out to the chat.
and I think it's time.
What
It's
time is it?
time.
It's
It's
time.
time.
It's
What time
time.
is it?
It is time for Let Me Ask My Cuz.
Let me ask my cuz.
Yeah. Shake that.
Go.
Can't
Hey,
stop.
go.
Won't stop.
Go. Go.
Conversation with my
Oh.
cuz.
Oh.
Shake that shit. Big rock.
I never have anything to add to that.
Just, just the
I'm
head,
gonna just
just the head move. Y'all like my skills, the beatbox? Yeah.
no. I just want you to
I'm sorry.
stop that.
I thought I was getting better.
No, no, just
All right.
sing, okay?
All
Just
right, just
sing
sing.
about the moon and the
Moon
June
and
and the
June and the
spring.
string. All right,
All right,
I'm gonna stop the beatboxing on the table, but I used to do that back in the day.
please.
Okay, I don't want to tell. I'm not going to share the story. Okay.
So, my cousin, my cousin. So the topic, which is very funny that we had talked about, right? It really kind of streams right into the topic that Rob brought up, which is, are we born with racial prejudice or do we learn it?
Mm. I believe it's learned behavior.
How
I
so?
don't believe that you're born a racist unless you're born into a family that's racist. It
Mm-hmm.
is learned from your environment, from your upbringing, because I'm quite sure, not to bring it back to old boy, I bet you if you were to find out who his parents are, who his family are, he get it from them too. He got it from them. And I'm
Hmm.
not just gonna look at it from just one side of it all. I think just period, not just white people. And well,
Black
I mean,
people
they
too.
technically say black people can't be racist, but I think that that hatred begins at home
Hmm.
of the opposite race in
Well,
any community.
right.
It does begin. I don't think as you're born with it. I don't know how you could be born racist unless you're born into it.
Okay. What
Uh,
you think, Ra?
I believe it's definitely learned behavior, but the thing is too is that we all do got to understand that people are different and they raised different. So I don't know if it's really like people are, we're different, like we're from different areas, we feel a way about things, we assume things about other people. So I don't know if that we could really honestly say, it is learned behavior, but what do you do when you don't know people and you don't identify as, you really don't identify yourself with them? You
Well,
understand
the
what I'm saying?
problem is the hate. It's not even just
Right,
that you don't
Right.
understand. It comes from the
exactly,
hate, right?
right,
And there are some situations where parents are not racist and their children turn out to be, right?
right.
Like
So what do you think that comes from though? If
I
you're
think
not
that
raising, if go
I
ahead.
think it's society. I mean, you're like my grandmother didn't, we weren't allowed to bring others at home. You couldn't even be a bill collector and knock on my grandmother's door if you was too many shades too light, right? So, but I didn't have that experience, even though that was my grandmother's thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't something that she forced. It was just this is her situation, her beliefs. And my grandmother was born in the South, in Greensboro,
Right.
North Carolina. So her life experiences gave her a different point of view. So there are some instances, right, where the family can be whole and children can be taught through society. Because from what I
Mm-hmm.
understand from this young man, Peyton, that did this horrible thing in Albany, is that he was influenced by things that he was watching on TV and social
Mm-hmm.
media. And, you Google enough things, then you can have a point of view skewed to a particular thing if you decide that that's what you want,
Yeah,
So,
I don't know. I mean, you can be influenced by what you see on TV, but the level of hate that this boy had against black people, I just don't know if that's from TV.
mhm. Or if
It's
something
and white
happened.
supremacy, because if you're screaming and spewing out white supremacy, that don't come from TV. That don't
Well,
come from TV in my opinion.
But you can
well,
have, I'm not saying that it always does, but there are situations where, the gang gets a hold of your child and changes
Yes,
your your upbringing, right? They
it
take that
does.
thing that you have and they turn the child into something else. So that happens
But the core
sometimes.
of who they are is still there though.
Yeah, it doesn't stop people from being Unabombers and going out and being martyrs and blowing
Mm-hmm.
themselves up in third world countries, right? It doesn't mean that the parents necessarily agree with that thought process, but if you get someone gets into a child's head, which is very malleable oftentimes,
True.
it can unfortunately put that child in a place where you find yourself standing in the freaking parking lot of a top supermarket shooting people,
Right. Black people.
black people.
yeah, but it's crazy because that's also, to me, I think it's a mental health issue too. Um, when you have that kind of hate, you have, that really is just really somebody that's out to lunch. Because right, we all have thoughts.
Out to
You know what I'm
lunch.
saying? So
Too much. Okay.
we all have thoughts. You understand what I'm saying?
That's
Now,
not.
you can't tell me that you ain't never sat in your crib and thought of no devilish stuff to turn around and do. It's when you act on it. And
I've
you
never planned a murder. I could
Yes, yeah, I don't
definitely
think I've
say
ever
that.
planned. Well,
Yeah.
I will say this. I have thought that Don't judge me, okay?
Okay.
I'm
Here
just
we
gonna say
go.
that.
Here we
I
go.
had thought that if I could just kill them and then bring them back to life
Mm.
and be like, yeah, I see, now leave me alone, then I'm good with that.
I had a friend in high school who will remain nameless, who was severely picked on because of complexion issues. And she had a plan and really was trying to recruit me and another one of my friends in
Oh my God.
kidnapping and killing one of the main people
What?
that
What?
I probably never told you that,
I
but
think I know who you're talking
you
about,
do
though.
know who I'm talking about. But it was a whole plan about how we were going to watch them in Sherwood from off the roof of the supermarket on the corner of 57th and 99th Street. Remember
What?
when you used to be able to go up there and used to be able to look
Yes.
over? So would sit there and watch to get the schedule of the person as they came out of their house. Understand me, not a small thing. Get the schedule so that when they came across the street, grab them, kidnap them, and kill them. That's how angry she was.
So what did you say?
Obviously, I was not with the program, you know. When she first said it, it was like, yeah, girl, I get it. Yeah. And then it was like the more you start eyeballing her from the side, like this chick is serious. Like she was
So
serious. I was like,
had you
oh
been down, it would have went
no,
down.
I was many days, and this is the terrible part. Many days I was sitting on the roof with her as she was watching the schedule.
What?
I surely was. That was my friend. I just
So
didn't know we were gonna kill her. You know, I realized at the time we was just watching, right? And then eventually it was like, well, let me tell you more of the plan. And I'm like, I can't come back up here no more. But yeah. Now imagine has she fully executed this plan
yeah,
to
all she
kill
needed was you to
the
co-sign it. It would have
largest
went down.
antagonizer, and she'd have been saying Shay was with me.
Right, exactly. Had you co-signed it, it would have went down, and we
Who
wouldn't been
knows
here
what they
today.
would have thought about me,
I would have been
right?
having a conversation with my cuz behind bars.
Yeah, huh. It would have
Yeah,
been letters. We'd have been writing.
we've been writing conversation,
Yeah, but
blogging.
it's sad because really, this is not a woman, a young lady whose parents were even thinking about that. It was things that had happened to her as a child that put her in this frame of mind. And thankfully, nothing happened, but that's not always the case, right? Because
So,
back then,
so we
we didn't
know.
have the means. We didn't have the means, but we're talking
Yeah,
about a society where you could actually make that happen. And there are
yeah.
enough examples of young men and people who are out to lunch who have done this kind of thing. So,
Out to lunch.
out to lunch.
It's very true though. But
Couple
again,
sandwiches short of a picnic.
hell yeah. So it's definitely mental illness involved. But I mean, we'll see what happens with this guy. What is he gonna get? He's gonna plead insanity.
Well, I hope that I
Go
don't
to a
want to say
mental
what I hope.
institution, and he's gonna go to a mental institution, and he'll be out in a few years.
I think that's the other sad part of it is that we don't seem to ever be able to get justice
Right,
in the court system even after it happens. It would be a different thing if you could say, I know that he's never going to see the light of day, but we
right.
don't have that. We don't
And
have that confidence.
it's on video. You can see what happened. So there's no way to say it didn't happen because you can see it. You can look it up.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I'm praying for complete justice. Um, we're not. This is not a New York is not a death penalty state, and so that's not going to happen.
Well, there's street justice, so there's that. But I ain't wishing nothing bad on nobody. I'm just saying.
You already said it.
Yeah, this is
Anything
my thing is I wonder if this young man's parents are gonna be held accountable. Because where did he
How?
even try to get the because what is the legal age to acquire a weapon? You don't remember that killing in Connecticut and when the guy shot the school up, they
Mhm.
locked the parents up for murder.
Hmm. I don't know. I don't know what the
I mean,
situation
he is
is. He's
technically a
18.
minor. That's not an adult.
No, it isn't. But who's to say
But
where he got
that's
the
not
gun
a.
from,
Well, yeah, that's true.
right?
Right.
But that's interesting too that the parents would be held accountable.
Now that this is, and then we've had many of these situations, but how do you all feel about owning your own guns. Does that in any way? I don't know about you, Ra,
Well,
or
we're
you,
not going to
Shell.
discuss that on there.
Well, no. The question is whether or not you think that as Black people, should we arm ourselves?
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Okay.
Because especially
Absolutely.
now, I just was talking to TJ today, and he's out there in Texas, so TJ has guns, and he's like, I'm gonna get more, and he's telling me that somebody just got shot right in front of him yesterday.
You
Mm.
know, the thing is in New York City is one of the only cities in the country that guns are illegal. It's illegal to carry a gun in New York City. It's a felony, and it's sad because I think this is why so many people are getting shot and killed. I think if everybody had the right to bear arms, then you might think twice about wanting to shoot at somebody because you get shot back at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Noah in the chat said that she's scared of guns, right? And I could say that for me at least, it comes from not having access or use of it, right?
Right.
Or understanding. I mean, obviously they kill, but so do cars, right?
That's true.
It's about educating yourself, learning how to shoot, learning the mechanisms of a gun, and then keeping something in a very safe way. So I never used to feel that way, but the older I get, the more I feel like it's something that I'm leaning towards, arming myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, I don't have nothing against one, and I need to have one. That's
Hmm.
how I feel. I mean, I know it's illegal, but I'm not saying I'm doing anything illegal, but I'm just saying.
Well, with y'all being emotional and everything,
Right.
y'all might
Speaking of
make emotional
emotions,
decisions.
since you want to go there, speaking of
I'm just
emotions,
saying.
yeah, whatever. Wait, what is it that you said? Men are logical and women are emotional.
That's what it is.
That's what you said.
I ain't going
That's
straight away from that.
I know you're not. I know you're not. But this is going to bring us into our conversation for today. As you
Oh,
can see, the
okay.
topic is raising boys to demonize their emotions.
Oh, I got something to
Um,
say too.
yeah, we know you got something to say, but we also have a guest that we're going to bring on that also got something to say.
No, I love company.
So, so we are going to welcome to the show, brother Amir. Amir,
Hello, good
welcome,
evening.
welcome, welcome,
How
welcome
y'all
to
doing? Good
Conversations.
evening. How's everybody?
We are
You've been in the
doing
back
Good
well.
listening
evening.
to
Good
our
evening. Great to see
silliness.
you guys.
Good to
You as
have you.
well.
Good
No,
to have
no,
you.
it's good to be here. Thank you guys so much for adding me to the conversation. I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Yes.
We
And thank you
certainly
for
want to
joining the
get another
conversation.
perspective
Amir,
on
what
this.
up, brother? How you doing, baby? Welcome to the show, baby. Welcome to the
What's
show.
going on,
I
sir?
got
He needs
company
some
You
there,
gotta
brother.
watch him.
testosterone.
You gotta watch him. He's trying to be your friend. He's trying to be your friend. He's
What's
trying to be
going
your
on?
friend.
Yo, Amir, I can relate.
He doesn't even
Well,
know what he's talking about yet.
yeah. So I was having a conversation with another brother, and he was talking about how boys are raised to demonize their emotions, and I thought that was an interesting thing because as women, we end up having to deal with these men once they get to that adult stage where they are emotionally disconnected and so forth and so on. So now we have to deal with these emotionally disconnected men. So we're just trying to get a perspective, a male perspective on.
Not that Roche's doesn't count.
No, his does count, but also multiple male perspectives on it. And where does that come from? What? Why do
Do
you
you
think
do
that
you
is?
agree?
And do you agree with that?
Right.
In some instances.
I, you know, obviously this is a multi-layered question, but giving some simple answers to the question. First and foremost, we have the ideology, like you said, that emotions is demonized, but emotions are demonized not in boys, it's demonized in men. When you're growing up, for the most part, we spend so much of our time hearing things like, don't cry, you a man, be strong, and, all these nefarious things that we say to our young people, not understanding that there are things that go along with it. Words have power. So when
Yes.
young people hear stuff like this, we then internalize it in specific ways. But the biggest thing about it is it then translates over the course of their life. So if you're hearing this as a young person, by the time you hit your teens, you're still in that headspace. By the time you hit a grown man, you're still in that headspace. what tends to happen for you ladies is not that guys aren't emotional, because I know, and just speaking for myself, I know I watch certain movies or, look at certain things, and I tear up when I see certain things that resonate with me. The problem is we have also put ourselves in a situation where we tell and or make people feel bad about being in touch with themselves. And the reality of it all is everybody should be, not only men, not women, everybody. You should be able to take a moment, internalize something, process it, and then share that hopefully with friends and family or the people who you're closest to. But we live in a world where we start picking on each other, to the story that, you guys were sharing just a minute ago, Lachey in particular, about her friend from high school. When you're getting picked on, when you are traumatized by something, and this tends to happen to so many of us, but when you're traumatized by something, you let it manifest itself because you never dealt with the trauma. So it becomes a trigger. So it goes from a trauma to a trigger.
Right.
And so many of us are walking around with traumas, with triggers and traumas that is scary, but it stems all the way back from childhood to adulthood, because you never dealt with the childhood bully. You never dealt with the people in class who picked on you. You buried it, and in your mind you said, I'm good, until you go someplace and somebody does the same things that they used to do to you when you was young, and then you flip out, or people think you flipped out. You're not flipping out. You
It
just never
manifests as
addressed
anger
that issue.
That's right. It comes
oftentimes,
out another
right?
way.
Yes.
There was a
So,
comment in the
so,
chat. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Amir. Finish your thought.
so I think that, again, what we're up against is literally, so many of us are finding ourselves in situations, and young men in particular, where in some cases, obviously, we're raised in single parent homes. So that means you tend to be around maybe your mom, you tend to be around your aunts, and, some of the female members of your family a little bit more than some of the male members, just because. So you tend to act and or respond to the energy that you're around. So if you're around more
Right.
women than you are men, there is a tendency to possibly take on that energy. You're not doing it on purpose. It's just because that's all you know. That's all you've been able to be around. To our guys who are fortunate enough to have male figures around, whether they be their father, whether it be uncles, whether it be, just male in general in your neighborhood, you tend to kind of gravitate towards that, especially if they're giving you positive reinforcement. Too much of what we do to each other, and this goes for everything, is negative reinforcement. So when you are constantly in a perpetual state of negativity, then you respond to what you're used to. So
Agreed.
really why we're seeing, our young people, or young men in particular, in this space, is because of the negative reinforcements that they're receiving versus positive reinforcement.
That's
Agreed.
interesting.
Agreed, because this is what I was explaining to them when we had the production meeting, that I feel men are kind of raised to think logical. Men are more logical. Their thinkers. We're not as emotional as women. So sometimes when the man up comes, I think at times you do need to tell men to young boys to kind of man up, try to get over a couple things, because that's what life is. Now, should you raise to would I raise my son to not be in contact with his emotional feelings? No. I think that comes to communication.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's the way I really look at it. I believe it's more with communication versus it is men being realized, to deal with the emotions. But I am a force of, like I said, like you said, more the positive reinforcement. Yeah, you can't run around here and cry and do these things, and these are the reasons why. If you have an issue, then instead of crying about it or whatever the case may have been, discuss it. That's what I think man up is. I think it's just the
Okay.
communication.
Wait,
Okay.
before you,
But
I have something. We have before
you
you
first.
go, Shay. I want to bring Justice on to the conversation because he's in the back.
Hey,
So
Justice.
bring him on. Welcome, Justice. Hey, Justice.
Hey,
Welcome to the show. Join the conversation. Everybody say hey to Justice.
Hey to
That's
hey,
Justice.
what
Justice.
another guy. This is my
Justice
So
is
as you can see,
shout out
the
to
muted.
Justin.
conversation has
Justice is muted.
is he muted? Okay, unmute yourself, Justice.
There
All
you
right. As
go.
you can see, the conversation has already started. So as I was telling our audience that the actual conversation that we're having stemmed from my conversation with him, with Justice. So this is why
Mm-hmm.
we're having this conversation today. And go ahead and make your point, Shay, and then we're going to get Justice's point of view on
I
this
don't
whole.
remember anymore.
But what I was going to say to Rashay, though, I did have something to say to Rashay
I know
about.
you do.
Yes, I do. About telling boys not to cry and telling boys to man up, and in that in that way. What is that actually teaching them, though? Like, I mean, I'm not a man. You guys are men, so you guys can give
But
me a better viewpoint on that. Because shut up, don't cry. Because I will say this as a single mother, that was something that I told my boys, and I do see the effect that it has on them today as adults.
Mm-hmm.
right, but I think you missed what I said. I said,
Okay,
yeah, instead of crying or getting into that bag, express yourself. Let's talk about what's wrong. Don't just sit
okay,
there and cry. That's what man
okay,
up to me means. But like you said, it's the positive reinforcement that has to come out to show them. You have to do it with love. Brother love does everything with love. You understand what I'm saying? So you have to do it with love and a positive force. But
Okay.
I
yeah, you
agree.
do need to
Okay,
tell men, try to be clear on your thoughts instead of breaking down emotionally and communicate. Everything comes down to communication.
okay,
Okay. Well, let me ask Justice a question since you just came on. As far as what our DJ was just sharing, what do you think about men that cry? Is it a place? Because what I'm hearing from him is that that's not the right way to do it. If you're crying, then you need to then take it and express it and hold the tear, or don't. So I wanted to just hear your thoughts on that.
Um, I have several, but I will start with we tell young boys not to cry because we want to raise um problem solvers. We don't want to raise our boys to accept things and just roll with the punches. And if you're crying about something, you're not actively trying to correct whatever is bothering you. So on one
Okay.
side, that makes sense to a degree, but it also dulls us down to being in a connection to our emotions because we're so
mm,
heavily focused on, well, what you gonna do about it? Because if I go to my dad and I tell my dad something is bothering me, he's always gonna ask me, well, what you gonna do?
right.
What's the next
Mm,
action? You don't sit there and wallow and sit there and feel the emotion. You gotta react. You gotta respond. You gotta do something. And when we
mm,
grow up and we have that approach with our queens, that's the main thing they have issue with. I don't need you to solve my problem. I was
right.
taught to feel my problem. You know what I'm saying?
Empathize.
Okay.
And so then to go back to what the
Sympathize.
brother was just
Yes.
saying about logic versus emotion, like emotions for a woman trumps all the logic, and logic for a man trumps all emotion. So at the end of
Mm,
the day, whatever I'm feeling got to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
for a woman, she holds on to the emotion of it. It's not what you did, it's how I felt while it was happening. And that can
Mm,
supersede the facts of the case. All the discovery can be trumped by the emotion behind something that happened. So,
okay.
we're
So we
not at
come to the
odds.
table very differently about trying to resolve an issue, right?
Right.
And then
Hold
there's a
on, Shay.
breakdown in
Before you do that,
Wait a minute.
understanding.
Wait a
Shay,
minute.
wait one second, hold on, because we having a problem with sound. Could y'all brothers turn down your computer sound a little bit? Because there's feedback coming into the back into the broadcast.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Shay.
I don't know what I was saying. You know you can't interrupt me. My ADHD kicks right in. Like you can't stop me.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Can I
but we had a lot of static.
can
Is
I
it
can
still
I just
there?
say this? I think that there are a couple of things here. I think first and foremost, I think sometimes we convolute a lot of things by trying to compartmentalize everything. So, for instance, it's been said thus far that women are a lot less logical than men. I don't necessarily agree with that because, in all fairness to my gentlemen who are here on the panel with me tonight, you ever piss a woman off and see how logical she gets? So that's why I don't agree with that. I think that what happens is in the moment there are some emotions tied to things, and she's trying to process it and this and that and the third. And to be honest with you, that's really what we should be doing as well. When you're emotional about something, it had a profound effect on you, obviously in a physical way, which means you should take a moment and really think about it and see how or why this affected you the way that it did. After processing said emotions, then to Justice's point, yes, then you start looking for solutions and trying to figure out exactly what you can do to fix it. But I think that's part of the problem. We keep trying to compartmentalize things in a lot of different ways to make each group feel specifically okay about what we say. And that's part of the problem. The the fact that you get emotional about something doesn't make you weak at all. In all fairness, it means you actually care. You have empathy, you have sympathy, which are traits and things that we should all hopefully have.
Absolutely.
We don't necessarily cater to it enough because everybody's of the mind frame of the mindset of being selfish and or feeling as though only what you feel and what you think is the only opinion that there is, when there are billions and billions of people on this planet.
Yes.
So how could you think that
Absolutely.
only what you think and feel is the end all, the be all?
Right.
Now, I bring that to the conversation tonight because as I've listened to the various lives that I'm thankful to participate in and hear the various, points and opinions, that's what I come away with. Our ability to, and I'm just going to jump in this realm for just a quick second. This is what happens when you don't deal with your emotions. Everybody, we talked probably to nauseum about the Will Smith situation. The
Right.
Will Smith situation happened because you had a gentleman who for most of his life has been thought of and perceived in a certain manner. And the interesting thing about that is he's not soft, obviously. You're talking about a gentleman who was rich, lost it, got rich again, and then became the biggest box office dude in the history of the game.
Right.
So obviously he had a game plan and he knew some stuff. But I bring that to the conversation because what tends to happen is people who are seemingly docile or quiet, to Lachey's point about the story she told about her friend, they're not soft. They're protecting you. Because a lot of times those people who are calm and quiet like that, they know what their wild side or their crazy side looks like. You don't. So that's why they kind of like, I'm just going to ask you to calm down and leave me alone.
Leave me
We
alone.
tend to, I'm going to keep poking the bear. When you keep poking the bear will either poke back or bite you. So I caution everybody, you got to utilize these various points of views to really look at each and every one of your friends, family, your kids, all of that, and start putting those things in perspective. So when you're dealing with them, you have better tools to deal with the situations. We can't just keep compartmentalizing and saying this broad stroke is for all this and for all that.
Right.
It's a case-by-case study.
Agreed.
We got to do better with the case-by-case study.
Agreed. I totally agree. I have a question though. To suppress emotions, doesn't it take emotion? And anybody can kind of jump in on that.
Say that again.
To suppress an emotion, doesn't it take an emotion? Do y'all agree
Yes.
with that? Or
Yes.
So you're
Yes.
emotional
Which is why I
anyway.
said you can't always, believe that a suppressed emotion or somebody who appears to be or not be, dealing with something isn't emotional, because at the end of the day, we just process emotions differently to
right.
something that you guys spoke about earlier before any of us got on, which is our ability to have things happen around us. That's where you get your learned behaviors from your family, from your friends,
Right.
from the people around you.
Mhm.
As you go through those processes, then you start putting those things in your toolbox for how you handle things.
Right.
Right. See,
Agreed.
the other thing is that when we had this talk, I was explaining to the young ladies that also I feel like men try to avoid dealing with emotions because we can't handle emotions the way women can. And I believe that that's one of the reasons why Will Smith flipped out, because he was at that emotional point. And I think guys, I think just men, it's hard to handle certain, especially when it comes to the emotional thing. And I think men try to really don't want to go in that bag because it's a rough bag for a man to be in. And I feel like women are much more emotionally stronger than men.
We didn't
Uh,
agree with him when we had
No,
that
like I said-
we didn't agree. No,
Just
we
so
didn't
you
agree
know
with that.
our point of view, right?
Well,
What he was trying to explain.
Well, look at Will
We didn't
Smith.
agree.
That was clearly an emotional breakdown.
But I want to add to what you were saying
but here's
about really quick. As far as men not being able to handle their emotion, why can't they handle their emotions? Where does that come from? Since you're saying that men are not capable of doing so,
Right.
that comes from somewhere. They don't just wake up today and say, "Okay, I can't handle my emotions." It
I
comes
don't
from
know. I
They
somewhere.
think
don't have any experience handling
like
it,
but
right? Because it's
Well,
suppressed.
I,
Go ahead, Justice.
we were talking. You was just talking about suppressing of an emotion takes emotion, but
Hmm.
I'm suggesting that as boys we began ignoring those emotions altogether.
Mhm.
We just
Okay.
we ignore it and we avoid it. You know, me being in the middle school teaching the kids is
Mhm.
why I just started playing in my mind of where does it start at, because I see it in middle school already. And I have a couple kids who are players. You know, they got about 4 or 5 girlfriends, and one kid wants it to be okay. He only has one girl, and then he might move from one young lady to another, but you know, he like, that's my old lady, and they pick on him about it and mess with him. And then you
Mm.
have one kid who has 5 girlfriends, and if any dude talk to any one of them, he's gonna fight the dude. And I'm
Mm.
like, this is the most toxic male I've ever been around,
Yes.
and he's 15 years old. And I don't know where he saw that that's how you respond to emotions, but for him, he just want to fight about it. She moved on, you got another girlfriend, you moved on, but she can't move on. And so I've been racking my brain. I talk to them. I have real live sessions with them twice a day where I try to pick their brain and figure out how they come to this. And I don't know. But he doesn't like the girl, but he won't let her have a life. And then they ran a prank on him, and they all got in cahoots and got on social media and said the girl got shot. And they called him and
Wow.
they were telling him,
wow.
oh, so and so got shot. You know, this man is crying,
Wow.
and they got him. They recorded him crying, and they showed me, Mr. Lewis, we got him, we got him. Because I always told him, you love that girl, and it's okay, man. It's okay to love her if that's what it is. You know, keep your hands off her, but you love her, you love her. You have feelings. Just own up to it. Nah, man,
Right.
no, it ain't like that. Because of what he's afraid his other friends are going to say. But I
Right.
don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know when that got taught. You're only
Right.
15. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
so,
And that has a lot to do with being honest, right? Being able to sit with yourself and be honest about where you are emotionally. And like Rob was saying that women handle it better. I disagree. I think that maybe we just are able to say what it is more often than men, right? We are able to sit back and say, I'm scared, or I'm unsure, or, you know, whatever it is, I'm
Right.
hurt, right? That's not an easy thing for a man to say and then to sit in it, right? And then, Amir, you made that point, and what I was going to say, I now remember. It's now 10 minutes later, but for me, um, tears are actually cleansing, right? If something happens, as a for me personally, crying is the first thing that I do because all of it is so heavy that it comes out as tears. And when I'm done crying, I can think.
You're a woman.
So I need that, right? And that, to me, it's always been something I've said is unfortunate that men don't have that same thing.
yeah,
They're not able to just sit and cry about it. Cry it out and then let's go fix it.
But some
Right.
do though.
But see, I
I
Some,
think
believe there. I believe some men do.
some. Hmm.
Some
right. But
men
see,
do.
my thing is what confused me with the whole thing with the ladies is part of that is communication. Men being able to communicate. I don't think it's more or less of what you're saying when a man says he's scared. A man can realize he's scared, and but he doesn't have to. He might not communicate it with you.
yeah.
That would be to me more of a communication issue than an emotional issue. See, that's
I
where
agree.
men.
Communicating it and
That right.
No,
and
That's where
having it
men.
come into the
no,
relationship,
no.
though, because a scared man in a relationship is going to bring that. If you're not bringing it into the relationship, your whole self, and whatever the situation is, maybe you may not say I'm scared, you may not use
Right.
those two words with a
Those
period on the
words.
end, but if you're not bringing that into the relationship, you're manifesting it in a different way. You're either
I
shutting it
agree.
off, right, locking
Right.
that woman out of your life. You're not able to say what's going on, and then that there's the breakdown in having a wholesome relationship. So what does a woman do? You can't drag that out of her, out
I
of a
think there's
man.
I think there's two things. First of all, to Justice at the bottom, let me address what he said about the young people, especially at the junior high school level. I think partial in part, one of the things that we're up against, and we don't talk about this enough, but there's so much influence that these children have now that we didn't have, technically speaking. I'm not sure how
Yes.
That's
old
true.
everybody is on the panel, but there's so much more influence or influential things that these kids have at their disposal that we didn't have. So social media obviously is one. The music has changed. We grew up in an era where you had balance. So you had
Yeah,
Rob you music and you had music that said, hey, you're beautiful black king and queen and so forth and so on.
Right.
That's missing now. I'll just
That's
put that
true.
out there.
Absolutely.
Let's not, negate the wonderful TV shows that, to
yeah,
Justice's point to things that these kids then eat up. Basketball Wives, these
yeah.
various hip hop
Yeah,
rap shows.
yeah.
Everybody's on there. It's called Basketball Wives, and only one chick on there is a wife. So look, we got a
Right,
Hey,
lot of issues. We got a lot
right.
of things to
preach,
unpack.
preach.
But because of these things, these kids are totally encompassed in it. So in that being their daily diet, if you don't speak to somebody or you don't have an outlet that kind of gives you some perspective, then you think to yourself, all that is said in those moments and all that's said in those songs and all that's said in those shows is the end all to be all. So that's something that we have to do a better job at. To
Yeah,
get back
I
to the point
agree.
that you just made, Lachey, the real reason why it probably is so difficult at times for men to express themselves is because there are two things that come to mind for me personally. One, usually, if you got a guy who's seemingly somewhat expressive, depending on the woman, he talk too much. He's soft. I don't know if
Oh,
I really like him
Preach,
because he.
preach.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying that's every woman.
you're not
I'm just
wrong.
saying
You're not wrong
that's
at
something
all.
that's something that guys go through. And then the second thing is this: in general, one of the real caveats that you ladies have over men is the fact that y'all can be, first of all, communicate and expressive with one another. The two
Mhm.
gentlemen here on the bottom, Ra and Justice, I can't speak for them personally, but I know I can speak for myself. Guys don't really have outlets like that. Yes, we got the barbershop. Yes, we have other nefarious things, cigar bars
Mm.
and blah, 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 that we go to. But I'm going to be honest with you. We only talk about sports, cars, and the
And
various other stupid stuff.
Nothing deep,
Very
brother.
rarely do men get together and talk about things that are truly emotionally they're attached to and or have an issue with, because then in the eyes of these two gentlemen, I'm just taking them because they're here on the panel, yo, Amir's kind of soft, man. I'm worried about him.
mm,
I ain't sure that he's
Mm,
built for this. And I'm not saying that these two gentlemen think that way or even respond to their, partners that way. I'm just saying that these are the things that we're up against. So when you get a guy who's not necessarily great at communication, you get a guy who's not great at responding. That's because he's in his own headspace. Excuse me. He's in his own headspace of trying to figure out exactly what to do and how to go about that. Because to something I said a little bit earlier, each situation requires a new set of rules and regulations as to how you're supposed to go about it. Because, for instance, if I'm talking to Lachey and her and I have great communication, I could share everything with her, and I break up with her and I start talking to Michelle. Michelle, I don't want to hear none of that. So I don't know
mm,
why. So we got to figure that part out.
that's
And
true.
for men, that's a slippery slope. So that's really why you get such a broad, situation when it comes to that. So, unfortunately from so many men, because we're not in a position where we do enough talking amongst ourselves, we do enough talking to ourselves, and we do enough working on ourselves to be able to communicate to you guys what you need and or want to hear. So that's really where that kind of comes from.
I
But
totally get that.
you
I
know,
I know
understand.
that's a mouthful.
like I
All
said,
that.
I get that. Yeah, for sure.
a woman's an interesting person because a lot of the times, to me, it's like they have wants and needs, and they feel like their needs need to be met. If they aren't met, they want to talk about it. And I think just with men, I learned dealing with a woman is really on the emotional side is pick your battles, pick
Yeah.
your time, pick your time where you really want to respond. pick your time where you really, really want to discuss your feelings. You understand what I'm saying? Because at the same time, it could be something on a woman's mind today, and the next day that thought process just isn't even there. And that's why I say, and I think even like with Lachey and Michelle, they're queens, right? They're very strong. A woman can have a baby, a woman can run a household, take care of kids, go to work, and maintain a relationship with a man outside the house because she don't want that man over her kids. That's a great thing for women. Men can't function that way. We just don't. And like I
And they,
feel, hold on, I feel
go
when
ahead.
men, like I explained to them, is when men get emotionally heavy, they make mistakes in life and bad decisions. So a lot of the
Okay.
times I ask every man the darkest point in your life when things were really bad for you, a lot of the times I find out that it's when you're in an emotional state. And my things, when I get emotional, sometimes I just stop. I don't make no decisions until I'll get
Okay.
myself together.
Yeah, and I think that that's the correct thing to do. And what you're speaking of, what it sounds like to me, is that when a man reacts emotionally, is when they make the mistake, not because they're
Right.
in an emotional space.
Right.
Right.
Because
But
if you
what I'm saying,
react,
right,
because that can happen to women as well. Because if we react emotionally, that's when tires get cut and windows bust.
well, yes, because
Right.
You know
y'all
what I'm
know what
saying?
y'all do. Y'all didn't get y'all
when,
way.
when I'm saying, when we react off of it, it's okay. I feel like it's okay to be emotional, but when you are reacting because of your emotions, then it turns into a whole different situation. Now those emotions are leading you and causing you to do things that you wouldn't normally do if you were thinking logically.
But
Right.
that's why,
Women and men, not just men.
nah, see, nah.
See, you
I
don't think
just
that
don't.
women are logical. See, that's
And
what
this
we
is
go
why
for.
he's
Well,
right.
y'all are not.
We are absolutely logical.
Absolutely not.
Oh, I don't agree. I need another opinion.
Let me
I think women. I
here,
think women
here's what I
are
will say.
logic. I think women are logical. If we have to separate being vindictive and logic, then you could say a woman is not logical. But yeah, women are logical as well. It's just what the overriding factor is
Right.
oftentimes
It
emotion.
depends on the situation. If they have an
But I
emotional
don't know if they,
right.
Go ahead.
I don't know if there's an override. I think, again, to something that I said a little bit earlier, we're just not healing properly. And that goes for both sexes. It's
Mm-hmm.
not one sex versus the other. We're not healing properly from situations that we've been in, and to our discredit amongst ourselves in general, not personal
Agreed.
levels, in general. We give some of the worst advice. Y'all know
Mm.
this for a fact. Sometimes women say to each other, "Girl, you got out from under one man, get under a new one." That's
Yes.
real
Mm.
advice. You need to heal up. Guys,
So
we
true.
sitting around, we say stupid stuff to each other. Son, one door closes, another one opens. No, my dude, you need to sit down for a moment and think about exactly what happened, how and why you got to this position. We don't do enough of that. When I
That's
say
true.
we give each other some of the most terrible advice, I'm always amazed because to Roz's point, I have the same conversations with friends and this and that and the third. And when you get to the barest essence, it is you didn't heal properly. I
Definitely.
got on, I was in a bad relationship. I got out of it. And then, I was out and about and I met somebody. It's okay to say, hey, I'm still not healed up. I'm working on myself. I
Absolutely.
got some things that I need to get
Stop.
better at, in and including
Absolutely.
communication, in and including understanding myself. We have duped everybody into believing that, and it's funny because I had this conversation with a friend earlier today. There's this weird thing that they've done into making us all believe that ultimately relationships are everything. And I'm not saying that they're not. I'm not saying that if you find somebody you don't have, if you have a wonderful relationship, that's great. But what I'm saying is, from childhood, for my two beautiful queens that's here, y'all get Cinderella and Snow
Hmm.
White and all these dumb
Right.
fairy tales that they hit you up with that say, hey, there's going to be this great guy who's going to come. He's going to make all these wonderful things disappear and make your life be perfect and wonderful. And I'm not saying again that doesn't happen. What I'm saying to you is you didn't go into that with the wait a minute. I need to be prepared for that by being the best version of myself I can be to get there. That's the
Mm.
part that they don't teach you. So you go
Right.
your whole life from childhood on into adulthood with that ideology. Now, what tends to happen is you meet Joe the garbage man. Tom, he works as security guard at Dollar Tree, but I'm not rocking with Tom the Dollar Tree dude because what we call it from around the way, he making bread, and I know what he's doing isn't necessarily right, but it's a little danger in it, and I like a little danger in my life. So what I'm saying is, we have all of these odd spaces that we get information from that we don't process properly. And then the biggest thing that we do once we get to adulthood, which bugs me out, is we don't go back over the course of a year, a month, whatever time frame you want to use to correct things, and go to yourself, you know what? This doesn't serve me anymore. I probably need to either delete this, upgrade it, or figure something else out. We don't do enough of that. We still
Right.
We
trying to
just
use
double down.
ideologies that rock forth in 84. We in
So true.
2022.
So
Do you
true.
realize how old that
Yo, but
ideology
So
is?
true.
And we
Amir,
That's
do that.
so true.
right, Amir, it's funny. It's funny that you say that because I had to learn that one, people don't want to be alone. They're afraid to be alone. When I became emotionally better, it was when I said to myself, you know what? It could be a chance that I may be alone and accepted it, right?
Hmm.
Then what happens is that's what started my healing process because now I learned how to live with myself as a man, not with the wife, not with the mother, not with a girlfriend. And once you have that where you can live with yourself and think for yourself and think clearly, then you have a better chance at really handling your emotions a lot better. That's what I
Hmm.
learned.
I
And
think
just
that this
recognizing it. Yeah.
conversation
Hmm.
could go on and on, and it's
Yes.
unfortunate that we are not able to keep this going, right? We need to have this conversation more
Oh
often.
man, I
And in
got
the
my
chat
boys.
it said
Got
we
my
need to start
boys.
having a different conversation.
Absolutely.
But I want to thank both of you guys for coming on and sharing your thought process, getting the conversation started. My hope is that those that watching are doing the same, continuing the conversation. But before we go, we ask all of our guests, what is your personal affirmation that enlightens, empowers, encourages, or entertains? Amir?
Okay, so my personal affirmation. I wake up every morning, and the first thing I do is obviously thank Allah for waking me up. But then I'm thankful for all of the immediate friends and family that I have. So I'm thankful for my grandchildren. I'm thankful for my lady. I'm thankful for my mother. So forth and so on. So that's the first thing I do as far as affirmations. As far as enlightening and empowering, I do my best to try to feed my soul, feed my spirit with music and or things that give me a higher vibration and enlighten me in ways that I may or may not have seen something yesterday. And then the encouraging and entertaining part, I'm thankful to people such as yourselves for allowing me to get on podcasts like this and encourage and hopefully, get people to, see things a little bit differently and to
Yes.
move differently. And then the entertainment part is, again, just being able to, meet amazing people such as yourselves and learn and add those things to my toolbox. So then this way I can hopefully help somebody else down the line.
Well, I'm
Each
thankful
one
for
Thank
you
you for
teaching.
coming
that.
on.
We appreciate
Absolutely.
you for that.
Justice, what is your personal
Justice.
affirmation that enlightens, empowers, encourages, or entertains?
All right. My nickname is Buck. They call me Buck because that's for building universal culture. That's my science of life, and I feel like everybody is one conversation away from making a connection with somebody. And so I go out and I intend, and I'm very intent on learning from every conversation I have, even when I'm talking to my kids in school. Like I approach knowing that I should leave this conversation having learned something else that's needed. So for me, I just maintain my science of life, build a universal culture. It's a universal culture that we all abide by, that we are all a part of. And if we focus on our likenesses versus our differences, we'll push the envelope forward, if only for an inch. And for entertainment, as far as me, I don't really get too emotional. I'm hard to read, Women tell me that all the time when I'm in relationships, but I do right. So I might not cry. I might not be yelling. I might not look down. My conversation sounds the same tone wise, but what I write down has everything there. And that's
Mm.
where I choose to
Love
put,
that.
my emotions. And I
Yes.
think that's the thing that's missing from our youth and from men in general is that outlet. What does that outlet look like? Because like Amir said, when we get together, it's how your family, how your kids, they good. Okay, go. We on to our regular old conversation, man. Good to see you, brother. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
We
I
don't
love
deep
that.
we don't
I
deep
love that.
into that. So that's it for me.
I so
Thank you
appreciate you
guys
both.
so much for joining the conversation today. And like Shay said, I hope that anybody that's watching walked away with something that they could use moving forward. And we know we may bring you back on. You never know, because we got to continue these conversations and having different conversations because it's necessary.
Yeah, we need a little more company. I need some company. I need somebody that can relate. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, fellas. Thank you so much. I'm so appreciative. I'm
Well,
so appreciative. Thank you, fellas.
we
Yes,
see you
yes.
guys next Sunday.
So we're going to say
8
goodbye to
o'clock.
Justice, and we're going to say goodbye to Amir.
Yes.
And before we end, we do every show with a shellism. And that shellism is, you don't have to control your emotions. You just can't let your emotions control you. See you guys next week. Peace and love.
See you guys.
I'm Team Remy's on DJ Big Rob. As we bring down the Cabo Experience 2022, I'm bringing talent, I'm bringing stiletto, I'm bringing Kenny Williams, I'm bringing DJ Warren, DJ Zah, DJ Storm, DJ K-Dog, and Uptown Zone, Jeff Frank. For more info, go to www.theteamremy.com and you're drawing, hold up. Go to www.theteamremy.com as we bring you all around. 5 days, 4 nights, opening party in the sky. Shake your day pool party. 90s party featuring Jeff Brand. All white Bon Voyage comedy show. Special performance by RL. Yes, Big Rod's gonna be on that day. And I'm bringing my cousins with me. Conversation with my cousins on